The carbon emissions from the deliveries you make to your clients can sound complicated, but you know what? Dead easy to work out. Let's have a look. To figure out the carbon emissions of the deliveries you make out to your clients, group your delivery types together. So say I made 27 of that type, 5 of this type, 4 of this type, that type, etc. during the month. For each of those delivery types, figure out what legs are involved with each stage of the journey, what vehicle did each leg, how far did that vehicle go, how heavy was that particular vehicle on average, and then use the carbon factors to work out the carbon factor of each leg. Each leg, add them up, that will get delivery type, multiply that by the number of deliveries made each month, job done. When you look at the carbon emissions of the deliveries you make out to your clients, the first thing to think about is, are they significant? If you're a service company, if you're a school, if you're office based, don't fret, okay? Don't get too hung up about it. I've had clients say to me, yeah, but we sent out 6 letters last week to people, or we sent out 14. You know, I'm not so much worried about that. You know, yes, put it into the software will calculate, you know, for you, you know, a number, but it's tiny. So don't beat yourself up if you're doing that kind of low volume letters, maybe the odd parcel out, okay? It's just not worth the effort you're going to put into it. Just make a couple of assumptions, you'll be fine. If, however, you're in construction, if you're a reseller, if you are in manufacturing and you have a significant delivery sort of operation, then yes, you have to take deliveries out. And this is really it's not really what's on the trucks, you know, or on the vans. It's really the carbon emissions of the use of the vans or the use of the trucks, is whatever it's going to be, okay? So we're looking at the carbon emissions associated with the delivery element, not what's actually in the deliveries. So what we do is we split the deliveries down into categories, and typically you might find that there are certain patterns or certain delivery sort of systems or types that you do over and over again. And what you do is you define those, work out what the carbon emissions of one of those typical delivery sort of types are, and then you just say, well, how many of the deliveries of that type to make? Give you an example. You know, imagine that you've got you know, steel going out. Imagine that you have some sort of manufactured steel, you're a steel processor. You will probably find that you have full loads or part loads leaving your premises every day, every week, whatever it's going to be, but every day out to certain clients here, 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 and here. And what you can do is you can figure out a group of clients that are a long way away, group that are medium, group that are sort of close, and actually just find them as 3 different categories. You know, delivery type A, long, medium, and short, you know, short deliveries. And just say, well, that week we made 7 of those, 3 of those, 2 of those. So we're simplifying the problem down so that we can get an answer. If you've got exact miles for every single delivery, yeah, you can do it if you want. If you want to go down to that level of detail, but most people don't bother. They will group into different types of delivery, okay? Now, when you look at each type of delivery, you have to sort of say, well, what does that delivery comprise of? And there's a few things you need to consider. First is each delivery that you make will probably have multiple legs. Not always, but sometimes. So you could say we take it on, for example, a van from here to here, then a truck from there to there, etc. Maybe a boat from there to there, etc. So you can have different legs of the delivery. If you've just got one leg, for example, it leaves your factory on a flatbed truck. It goes typically, for example, 100 miles or something like that, and then is offloaded. That's one delivery leg, nice and easy. For each leg of the journey, you want to be recording, if you can, it's not always possible, but if you can, and if it's not possible, make some estimates, you know, make an educated guess. But if you can, for each leg of the journey, you want to know, well, what type of vehicle was it? You know, was it a truck, a van, was it a boat, was it a plane, was it a car, whatever it's going to be? What are the broad categories of the delivery mechanism? And then you've got a choice. You can either choose to look at the number of miles that that sort of vehicle traveled, okay, or kilometers obviously, but you know, miles, how far did it go? You could also look at how much that delivery weighed, okay, and that's probably more useful to look at the weight for heavy things. You know, if it's a light thing, probably use miles rather than weight. And then for some delivery types, especially heavy bulky items and stuff like that, you need to start looking at both of those. So it's the distance times the weight, and it's a measure both of how far and how heavy the load was. Now, whether you use miles, whether you use weight, whether you use the ton miles or ton kilometers, etc., these three different categories, depends on what you're delivering. Okay, to make it easy, if you have a look at my book, Net Zero for Business, page 113, I looked at that before doing the video, 113, it lists out a few of these factors, and you just got to choose the most appropriate for you. If you're using software, it kind of does that a bit for you anyway, but you still have to say, well, we're going to use that metric or that metric. But the software will do a lot for you. And have a look at page 113 if that's of interest to you, and to sort of get further detail on all of this sort of delivery carbon emission calculation. Okay. There's one caveat to the whole thing, which is if you've got web deliveries going via a consolidated courier, so say UPS, FedEx, whoever it's going to be, then they publish figures out on their average emissions per parcel. Again, they'll be built into software normally, if you're using software. If not, go to the website and say, UPS average parcel carbon emissions, and you can just use that. And that's because you're not in control broadly when it leaves your premises about how it gets to the destination. They might have your parcel sitting alone in a flatbed truck traveling 100 miles, or it might be shoved in to a van stuffed full of these things. You just don't know, okay? So it's much easier in those situations just to use the consolidated courier average carbon emissions per parcel. Just look that up, use it in the software. Easy as anything, really. I mean, that really is a very straightforward way of doing it. Okay, so I hope that was useful. If that was, please consider buying the book Net Zero for Business, available on Amazon. And if it's useful to you and you think, oh, that was all right, please consider giving it a decent review on Amazon, and that would be fantastic. All right, see you next time.